Hello everyone and welcome to episode 3 of Euros Weekly. I'm Mya Graham. With us today we have soon-to-be graduate and professional footballer Georgia. Hi Georgia, how are you?
All right, yeah, I'm not too bad.
Good. UCFB Ambassador Award winner Shanna. Hi Shanna, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all good, thank you. And we also have the Scottish Professional League, Sean. Hi Sean, you okay?
Not too bad, thanks. How are you?
Good. So this week we'll be covering quarterfinals, unfortunately what went wrong for Scotland, and previewing tomorrow's huge game, England versus Germany. So let's get into it. How's everyone's few first weeks of the Euros been? I'll come to you, Sean, because I'm sure it'll be a little bit different to ours.
Yeah. For me, it's one of those, like, see with Scotland qualifying for our first major tournament in 23 years. It's just been nice to be actually a part of it. See, like, going into a summer and actually being able to kind of look at the Panini sticker albums and stuff. And there's like Scotland players like Declan Gallagher has got a Panini sticker this year. Like, just like wee novelties like that have been quite enjoyable. And just being able to actually be part of the build up and stuff like that, and being a big part of the tournament. Obviously, it didn't really work out as well as we'd have hoped. Looking at the group before the tournament started, it was a group that everyone in Scotland thought that would be difficult to get out of, but wouldn't be impossible to get out of. And it just proved to be a bit of a bridge too far. I think for us starting off with the game against the Czech Republic, that was the game that we really needed to win if we were going to have a real chance of getting out of the group. And the fact that it was I can't remember how long into the game it was, but when your goalkeeper was 40 yards off his line and gets lobbed by Patrick Schick so early on the tournament, you think it's maybe not going to work out too well for us.
Yeah, just wasn't your tournament after that goal, was it? Unfortunately, but you went into the last match day still well in contention for being able to qualify for the group. So qualify at the group, sorry. So I'm sure every Scottish fan is extremely proud of that squad of players. So yeah, bit of a different experience for us English fans. Shanna, I'll come to you because you're not actually in England at the minute. So how have you found experiencing the Euros from America?
It's been interesting, to say the least. So the earlier kickoffs in England, where you guys have been watching them, they've been starting at 6 a.m. here. So most mornings I'll like either go to like the sports bar, or I will like get up early at 6 a.m. to watch the matches. Wow. And then they go all through the morning here. So there's one normally during the group stages, there's one at 6 a.m., one at 9 a.m., one at midday. So luckily work have been really, really understanding of the fact that I'm proud English. So I've had 2 screens up where I've been doing my actual job. And then I've had a 3rd screen up where I basically had the football on all morning. But to get everyone involved, I organised like an office sweepstake. We all pulled names out the hat. Unfortunately, I didn't get England.
Who did you get?
I got Switzerland and Russia. So I think I don't fancy my chances, but like the person who won the sweepstake who has England, or the person who has England in the sweepstake, I did say if they won that I'd probably double the prize money anyway, just because it would be essential. It would be essential to find someone to celebrate with.
And Georgia, yourself, you're obviously a professional footballer. You know, you do it for a living, and I'm sure watching football and playing football, has it been too much football for you? Have you ever had too much football?
It's been different, I think, because I've just come back from basically filming a TV show around football, and I've had to sit on the sidelines as a production crew and watch people play football for 2 weeks and not be able to kick a ball. And then I come home and the Euros is on and I can't kick a ball like while that's going on. So if anything, it's just, I think every day now I'm training, I'm kicking a ball because it's just, I just want to be out on the pitch after watching everything. But yeah, I think kind of like what Sean's saying, it's the little things that I love about the Euros at the moment. You know, your Panini stickers and the kind of random players that suddenly the team wants to sign. So I'm really excited. I'm really loving kind of the underdog stories that are happening at the moment. So it should be a good few more games.
Talking of those underdog stories, we won't dwell too much on the round of 16 games that we've had already, but I'll kind of look ahead to the teams that we already know will be in the quarterfinals. So we've got Denmark, Italy, Belgium and the Czech Republic. I think probably people did expect Belgium and Italy to make it this far. People may have written off Denmark and Czech Republic, definitely. Let's talk about, obviously, the really, really nice story. Quite tragic, but it's turned into a nice story that has come from Denmark. And I mean, none of us are Wales fans, but I know I was screaming for Denmark at the weekend because of everything that has happened with Christian Eriksen. Sean, I'll come to you, obviously, but at that game at the weekend, Denmark, don't get me wrong, the performance was incredible, but are they sort of a bit of a underdog dark horse team that now you're really rooting for in the competition?
Yeah, I'd have to say so. I mean, I can remember when the whole thing with Christian Eriksen happened. I was out for a few drinks with my pals, and we were just sitting out in a beer garden, and we just kind of got like somebody pinged a text to him and be like, "You seen what's happened with Christian Eriksen?" Like, didn't absolutely none the lies. So we went inside and we just looked at the telly, and obviously just being in complete shock, thinking obviously hoping for the best, but fearing the worst as well. And the fact that the Denmark team, like the whole squad, rallied round them. I mean, Simon Kjær, his actions on that day, if that's personifies exactly what a captain should be, a true leader in every sense of the word. And yeah, I think because of that, everyone's got that little bit of Danish in them for the rest of the tour. Everyone wants to see them do pretty well. And on the park, initially they lost the game against Finland. I believe it was 1-0 after when the game kind of got replayed. And I think they only got one win in the group stages. But now they're through. The performance they put in against Wales was quite something to behold. Like they're very strong from back to front. And it's quite funny as well, sitting here wearing a Falkirk shirt, my local team. The Denmark goalkeeper, Kasper Schmeichel, actually spent a loan spell at Falkirk, so that's another reason to root for Denmark.
There you go. There's always a connection. You can always find a connection. Georgia, I'll come to you because taking the less so underdog teams that have made it through to the next round, Italy and Belgium, they've two teams that have looked pretty solid in the competition so far. Would you say either of them could potentially maybe going on and winning this competition?
Yeah, I think watching the game from the start, I took Italy in the group stages as one of my favourites, and certainly one that I think would go on to win the tournament just because they were the most exciting to kind of watch at the time. And right now they still are. I mean, it went to extra time against Austria, and Austria looked strong coming back. It was still an exciting game to watch with them. And I think we need to take into account it was their first game away from their home fans as well, which is always a tough ask. You know, Wembley didn't make much of an atmosphere for them either. So they did well to get a result out of it. And Belgium, I mean, they're number one in the world, and they have been for the past 1,000 days. So if they're not kind of looking strong and going to pick up some silverware this year, I don't see when else they're going to do it, really.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I just want to come back to Scotland quickly before we move on because I've got a lot of England talk that we can do. But Sean, I just want your feelings on, like we said, this was incredible for Scotland. You've obviously not been in a major tournament for such a long time. We've sort of seen Wales go through this semi-transition period of building, and now they look like a kind of team that can hold their own in international tournaments. You know, we've seen them press quite far in the Euros the past few years. What do you think is next for the Scotland team? In what areas do you think you need to strengthen? Because, you know, we've seen you've got a really solid midfield, some important fullbacks. What's next for Scotland?
I think what's next for Scotland is we just need to build on this. The fact that we finally qualified for a major tournament for the first time in 23 years. We just need to make sure that it isn't the last time. It's not another 23 years. I don't want to be sitting here 46-year-old the next time Scotland qualify for a tournament. So in terms of looking at our squad, there are obvious strengths. I mean, the fact that we've got two world-class players, and they both play a lot in the same position, and it's both left back. I mean, how unlucky can you get? Whereas you look at Wales, and they've got Gareth Bale and Aaron Ramsey, who are both like midfield/attacking players who can really go and change the team. But for us, if you're expecting two fullbacks to kind of be your linchpins, it's a bit of a struggle. But I think in general, I think there's a lot of hope for Scotland going forward. We have quite a lot of players who are currently sort of in their prime years. Players like John McGinn, Callum McGregor. And then you've got players who are younger and coming through. So the obvious one's Billy Gilmore, who's man of the match against England. One of the main things with Billy Gilmore isn't just the fact that he's a very good player, but he almost plays with a swagger. Like he was at Wembley, and he had guys like Grealish and Sterling and whatnot hassling him. But every time the opportunity came, he was like, "I want the ball." He was looking for the ball, looking to make things happen, and that's kind of been a thing that I think Scotland players have been lacking for a long time. Is that we almost try to play it too safe, and people aren't willing to take risks and kind of be the person to try and drag the team forward. But and like Billy Gilmore, as well as David Turnbull, Nathan Patterson, and even to an extent Tom McTominay. I know he's 24, but they're all of a good age that they can still progress, and they've got the best years ahead of them. So I really hope that we can kind of build on it, and hope that we can produce a good striker or two in the next few years, because while Shea Adams looks like a really good option, aside from that, the quality drop off after him is a bit stark. Yeah, so there's not too many options at the top end of the pitch, but hopefully we produce a few more in the next few years.
I mean, I know hindsight's a wonderful thing, but had Billy Gilmore been available for that Croatia game, could you have seen that going any differently? Because, like I said, he is now an important figure at such a young age in your side.
Yeah, I think you could say potentially Gilmore might have made a difference, but I think just in the way that Croatia played, it just totally tore Scotland apart. I think what Scotland needed to do against Croatia was basically have someone like John McGinn, let's say, on Luka Modric the whole game, just asking him and getting in his face. And we didn't do that. We sat back a bit too much, and Luka Modric, being the world-class player that he is, just ripped us apart. Like he was phenomenal in the day, and I don't really know how much of a difference Gilmore would have made. Like I'm sure he would have improved us on the ball going forward and gave us a bit more energy in there. But I just think that the way that Croatia played, the way that we played in the hands was just too much. It was just too far too early.
I truly do hope, and some, part of me feels pain saying this, but I do hope Scotland, do qualify for another major tournament again, because as much as I'm an England fan, it is nice to see your home nations doing well. So hopefully in the future we'll be a little bit further than the group stages for you guys. A team that has made it to the round 16, England, amazingly. But we have Germany. Right, it could do. You literally could not write this. Such a historic fixture. I could just write it's probably going to go to penalties, but either way, let's not think about that. The last group stage game, we had to make a few changes. Obviously, the whole Chilwell and Mount situation, and we saw Grealish and Saka come in. They both had incredible games. Shanna, do you think that either of those should be keeping their place for tomorrow night?
Definitely Jack Grealish. I think in major tournaments, my way of thinking about it has always been as much as a strong defensive performance will help, your priority needs to be your attack, because when you play football, mistakes happen. And if you go 1-0 down at 60 minutes, it doesn't matter how good your defense is. If it's a knockout game, you need to score a goal in those last half an hour. So I've always looked at it as when you build a squad for a major tournament, as important the defence is, I would always say that your number ones on the team sheets would be your attackers, the ones who can win a game 4-3 if that's what it comes down to, because at the end of the day, it's goals that win football matches. And the one thing that defenders hate is people who have confidence and who run at them. And Jack Grealish is just a perfect example of someone who plays with so much confidence, someone who has come into the England team so rapidly. You think he only had like four caps before the tournament even started, and yet most of England now screams for him to be on the team sheet every week. And I definitely think that the attacking players that we do have, I think something needs to be mixed up a little bit moving forward, because your younger players, the ones that have a point to prove, your Billy Gilmores, are going to play with a confidence because they feel the pressure, but they might not necessarily feel the weight on their shoulders that some of the more experienced boys may feel. They'll just kind of go out there, enjoy the match, give it their best, and not particularly worry, not play with the weight that maybe Harry Kane may play with. As he's the captain, he feels like he should carry the team. And maybe if he has one or two performances that don't hit that high bar that he's set for himself, it might weigh on him a little bit. Whereas when you've got your young guns coming in, your new boys to the squad, they've got the point to prove. It's a lot more exciting for you to watch as a fan because there's so much energy, there's so much kind of dynamic moving forward. And to break down a German defence, we're going to need some quality on the ball.
You talk about young players and even just mentioning there sort of breaking down that defence. Georgia, I'll come to you because, I mean, this pains me to say as a Tottenham fan, but Mason Mount for me is one of the, if not possibly the second behind Harry Kane, most important player for England. He's had an incredible season at Chelsea, and he's been away for a week, self-isolating. I think that him and Chilwell have been doing some separate training and whatnot. Do you think he comes back into the side? I know yourself, you're a Liverpool fan, aren't you?
Yeah.
So we've got someone like Jordan Henderson as well that's now, available. Where do you see that central midfield role? Who do you see filling it? Obviously, we can even see Jack Grealish as a 10 in there instead of on the left. Do you think Mason Mount comes back in?
I'd like to think so. I think, as much as he's been separated from the team, just looking at kind of the content that England are putting out, which is, great content that's out there on YouTube and things at the moment. They're working very hard, and the guys that are surrounding there within them camps know how to manage them guys better than anyone. And I have no doubts that there has been a plan drawn up for the case of if someone, it was going to happen. Someone was going to have to isolate at some point. So I'm sure there was everything there ready to do it. And I want to see Mason Mount in there. Again, as a Liverpool fan, it pains me. I'd take Jordan Henderson over pretty much any midfielder in the Liverpool squad. But if we're talking about England and winning knockout games, it's completely different than trying to win a league title. I think Mason Mount is, he's kind of dynamic in that midfield. He plays passes, he sees passes. He's not afraid to kind of make that risky pass if it doesn't come off, and it's great to see Declan Rice that kind of sweeps up behind them. But yeah, I kind of echo what Shannon says as well. I think it's the likes of Saka and Foden and the kind of young guns that are coming through that will break down that Germany defence, because they're not as experienced as they are. I don't see them kind of matching the pace of that kind of England attack if we do go that way.
And again, we talk about breaking down this Germany defence. Sean, from sort of a neutral or outside view looking in, we see Germany so much of the time playing a 3 or a 5, if you want to call it, with deadly wing-backs. We know that Gareth is partial to going with that kind of formation, even though a lot of England fans don't like it. Do you think in a game like this, setting up with a 3 or a 5, whatever you want to call it, is the way to go?
It's a tough question. I think if you're looking at it from an England perspective, I think England just need to play to their strengths. At the end of the day, the Germany team that they're coming up against is a good side, but if England really have aspirations of going on to try and make the semi-final or the final or win the whole tournament, then they need to be implementing their game plan on other teams. They need to be making other teams play to their game, sort of thing. One player that I think that, and I've seen this on Twitter and stuff, like all the German fans and players saying the one player they're scared of is Jadon Sancho, and I don't know if he's had a kick yet, which is absolutely mind blowing to me. I think Jadon Sancho is possibly one of, if not the most talented player in that England squad. So he needs hit double figures for goals and assists in a good Borussia Dortmund side in the Bundesliga for like the past 2 seasons. I think that he could really hold the keys and be a difference maker for England if he's to be selected. As we said though, people like Jack Grealish, Mason Mount, like England have got really dynamic performers, especially going forward. So if they are to go and beat Germany, and like I say, if they really want to progress in this tournament and try and win the whole tournament, then they need to be kind of making Germany making Germany look and think, oh, we need to change our team to suit England, sort of thing. So yeah, there's probably a lot of managerial headaches there for Gareth Southgate, but it'll be an interesting tactical battle nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, I think on behalf of a lot of England fans, we share that frustration of kind of not understanding why Jadon Sancho hasn't really been given a chance. You know, he's absolutely bossed the Bundesliga for the last few years. So, Shanna, I'll ask you. I mean, I've seen it, like Sean said, you know, a lot of people saying that Jadon Sancho and even Jude Bellingham, they'll know how the Germans play. Do we need to utilise them more in this game tomorrow?
Kind of picking up on what Sean said, I think England need to focus on their own game. What we can't let is the mind games of, oh, it's Germany and knockout competition, kind of dictate the way that we play. I mean, we have on paper, arguably, the most valuable squad in the tournament. For once, we've got an England team that doesn't just rely on its starting 11. We have depth. And we have depth in pretty much every position. Like even if you're looking before the tournament, we've got 4 right backs who would walk into pretty much any team in the world. So we have that strength in depth. But I think it all comes down to preference. You know, in our head, we are all football managers. That's how we watch football. We think, I would have played this person or this person should play. And England are in a very fortunate position, but probably for Southgate, quite a tricky situation in that, whereas it might be in a squad, a manager might have to make one big call. You know, I'm going to start this striker over this striker. Southgate has 11 positions on the pitch, even the goalkeeper, where people sometimes think, oh, I would put someone else there. So I think I wouldn't necessarily say that he's in the wrong for sticking with what he knows, but it makes us easier to play against if you announce to the media that Harry Kane may it will be starting three days before the game. Because if I was an opposition team, I would see that he's not in very good form at the moment. And I would know instantly, right, I'm going to build my defence around taking him out of the game. And we saw Scotland do it effortlessly. If you know who you're playing against and you know that they're struggling a bit on form at the moment, you cut off the passes to them, especially as a striker. If they play as Harry Kane does as a number 9, it takes them out of the game. So I think Southgate needs to utilise the fact that nobody knows who the 11 players are going to be on the starting lineup, as opposed to playing it a little bit safe, sticking with what he knows, because then it makes it easier for us to play against. But Bellingham, sensational football player. Look at how young he is. Again, he falls into the category of all the confidence in the world, so much to prove. Like, why wouldn't you give him 30, 40 minutes if we haven't scored? If we're looking to push for a goal, why wouldn't you give Bellingham 30, 40 minutes? Similar to Sancho, how he hasn't even... I thought he was going to start the Scotland game. I thought he didn't get any minutes in the first game. I was sure he was going to start the Scotland game with Grealish. And then the team sheet comes through and you're like, oh, maybe not. But the best thing is that we have those options to come off the bench. If they don't start, we have game changers. So do I think that Sancho should potentially start over Sterling? Yes, but especially as a Liverpool fan as well, but then knowing Raheem Sterling, watching him play, everybody saying, oh, Sancho should start over Sterling. Sterling will likely turn up against Germany and have the game of his life. So that's just how football works. You know, players thrive on the talk of will they, won't they be in the team. I definitely feel like it pushed Trent in the last 3 or 4 games of the season. The speculation that he might not be in the England squad, you know, it made him step up. It made him play better for Liverpool. It made him try harder, think about his game a little bit more. So I think having the competition in the squad can only really be a good thing.
When we talk about competition and depth, and don't get me wrong, on paper, you're right. We have one of the most amazing attacking options in the whole competition. That's without a doubt. Yet we've scored 2 goals the whole competition, and they come from a really out of form Raheem Sterling. Okay, now it pains me again because, like I said, I'm a Tottenham fan, and Harry Kane, he's not turned up, and I'll be the first to admit that. What do we do from here? George, I'll ask you, because, like I said, 2 goals. You know, we've looked really, really solid at the back, but going forwards, like I said, the only 2 goals they've come from and he has been quite out of form, Raheem Sterling. Do we stick with Raheem? He's the only player who has scored goals, but for me personally, I'll hear your take, but apart from the goals he's scored, he's not really looked up to it in this competition. What's your views?
I'm biased because I am a striker, and I think Harry Kane, yes, he hasn't been on the form that we saw him in the past major tournaments. But I do think the work that he's doing off the ball and the hold-up play and the link-up play that he's doing is great. That works well when you're playing with 2 strikers up top. And, you know, we used to see it kind of, I remember like Peter Crouch and Jermaine Defoe is the perfect example of you've got one that's so aerially dominant and so good at hold-up play, and the other who's so nippy and is a great finisher. When it is just Harry Kane up there, it's very difficult, and I think that's what's kind of shining a light at the moment is he's not, and he doesn't create things in and around the box. He finishes them, and he's not getting them opportunities to do that. I think for me the problem will lie in midfield. We do have Mason Mount, and he's brilliant at finding them balls out to the wings, which I think is why we've seen so much success with the likes of Raheem Sterling and Grealish. But I think as secure as Declan Rice does, and as great as the first game that Calvin Phillips had, I do think we need more of an attacking threat within midfield to kind of help kind of link that gap between the midfield and attack, because we can't rely on Grealish for doing a bit of magic, or we can't rely on these players to do that, because the fact is it does run out. But that being said, you know, the goals we have scored, and we are defensively secure, which has kind of been a bit of an issue with England in the past. I think this is probably one of the most sound defences and keeper we've seen for a long time, which bodes well. But yeah, for me, the problem probably lies in midfield and kind of getting those attacking threats from there to create those opportunities for the likes of Kane.
We've seen Rice obviously playing that completely holding role, and then Calvin Phillips, as probably the bit more of a box to box, but we still know that he still does have those defensive duties that he definitely, you know, he has at Leeds, and maybe that's why we're seeing more of a defensive-minded 8 in Calvin Phillips and an attacking. Would you say you'd probably take out Calvin Phillips and put in maybe a bit more of a Bellingham or a Henderson that could probably, like you said, be that link between if we're playing Mount and Rice, instead of someone who sits in, you know, in that double pivot next to Rice?
Mm-hmm. I think definitely. I mean, Bellingham is the perfect example of a player that kind of loves to link up play, loves to break those lines, and is really, you know, a dangerous player in there. I mean, whether the game against Germany is the time to do that, but we don't know, because Germany do have a solid midfield. You've got the likes of Toni Kroos in there, who's been dominating midfield for God knows how many years. So maybe setting up defensively is the way, and bringing the likes of Bellingham, which we've seen, you know, bringing him on and popping him into that midfield. And by no means, so I think Calvin Phillips has had a bad tournament. I think he was certainly a standout performer for our first group game, and I think, you know, to see more of that type of performance, of him having some more shots on target and things. But like you said, it's just us speculating, because for all we know is that he's been given that role to do, to make sure that he is being and keeping that defence secure. But I think the likes of Bellingham coming in and slotting into that, or even like you said, Grealish popping into that 10 and things, it gives us more of those attacking threats and makes us look a bit more of an exciting team. But whether we start with that and kind of risk that is a completely different conversation.
I just want to finally talk about, I don't want to jinx anything, but if we get through tomorrow, then our route to the final is looking all right. It really is. Sean, do you see this potentially, if England do get through tomorrow, as the best chance that England have had?
In terms of the Euros, yeah. I think the only thing you've got to worry about is you look at the World Cup. England got through their group, breezed through the group, got past. Was it Colombia? Was it Sweden? And then they came up against Croatia in the semis, and that was their downfall. The only problem that you've got is, well, that was also a favourable run. Is that do you maybe get a bit too complacent? Because who's they get if they go through? Is it Denmark?
Denmark or Ukraine, Ukraine or Sweden, and then Denmark or the Czech Republic.
Yeah, so like if you're looking at that, just like say on paper, you'd fancy England to beat those teams, but again, we've seen it in tournament football many times. Sometimes the underdog can prevail. I mean, you look back to 2004 and Greece won the whole thing. It was at 1992. Denmark didn't even qualify and they ended up winning it. So like it's tournament football. It's unpredictable, but I think if England managed to get past Germany, then you'd have to fancy them to go through to go all the way at least to the final. But Germany's a big hurdle to overcome, and like I say, it's going to be a very interesting battle from like a tactical standpoint because, as you all know, Germany over however the last decade or so have been so proficient. Even when they've had periods of, like, you look back to when they played England the World Cup back in 2010. That was the kind of the start of this period of German dominance in football. And that was a pretty young team then, and ever since they've just been so consistent and so proficient in pretty much every tournament. They've done relatively well, and I do still think that they're a very strong outfit. But as I was saying before, if England really want to progress in this tournament, then they need to be beating Germany. They need to be really laying down a marker and making themselves, making other people look and think, right, they might be the team to beat. So it's going to be an interesting one. But if they get past Germany, then it's as good a run at the final as you could possibly hope for. But tournament football, and sometimes upsets happen.
And we've got to get past Germany first. So I'll just come to each of you finally. Just give me a score prediction and also a player that you think we should be wary of, a German player that you think that we should be, or for you, Sean, that you think England fans should be wary of for tomorrow's game. So, Shanna, I'll come to you first. Score prediction, and then just a player to maybe be a bit more mindful of.
So, score prediction-wise, I think it's... Do I jinx it? Do I tell you guys what I think is going to happen, and then it doesn't happen? I think it will be a difficult game, and I think the battle will be won or lost in a lot of players' minds, or a lot of England fans' minds when they see the team sheet. But I think we have a very capable, strong squad. We have the potential to play a Euro final at Wembley. I don't know if I was in the England squad, that would motivate me to no ends. So I believe that we won't concede a goal tomorrow. I think we've been very defensively solid. It's all jinx now. I'm sorry, be 4-0, but I think it will be 0-0, and I think it will be an extra time goal. But I'm not going to swing either way.
No, I mean, I'll tell you what, I actually myself had a dream the night before last that it was 0-0. It went to extra time, and we scored in the dying minutes. Jude Bellingham scored. I'm not sure whether he'll be on the pitch, but Jude Bellingham scored. It went to VAR for a handball, but it got given. So I'll probably as well go with my green prediction, which is 1-0.
Well, if he comes on after 80 minutes and it's 0-0, I mean, I'll be thinking of you.
And a German player that you think we should be a little bit aware of tomorrow?
I think it's more important to focus on the team than the individual players. I think a lot of looking at England's route to the final, people will look at it and say, oh, England should get past them. England should get past them. But it's all about momentum, and it's all about how they work as a team. Denmark, every single player, whenever they step on the pitch from this point on, will give 110%. Because the momentum is there. They have a point to prove. The world is rooting for them. And I always think tournaments are all about the momentum, the fans and the team and how they gel. So I think, look at Germany's group stages. Did they click? Potentially not. But we all know that every team in the world loves to play against England. They love to silence English fans. Look at the Scotland team turning up for potentially the game of their lives to keep it 0-0 against England, and every single player on the pitch, grit, determination, because teams love to play against England. So I would say focus more on the overall task than the individual players.
I like that approach. There's definitely about 4 or 5 German players that scare me to death.
We won't mention that.
George, what about yourself? The score prediction, and then is there anyone that you think on that Germany team that you are quite scared of?
Probably the same. I think it'll be a tight game. I think 1-0. I'd like to say to England after extra time, but yeah, I don't know. It depends. I think we've seen in the group stages how up and down Germany have been. We saw in the qualifiers as well, especially against Macedonia in the World Cup qualifiers. I mean, that came out of nowhere. So it is really kind of up and down. It's what German side turns up. I think as much as we are talking about how great it is for England to be playing at Wembley in the home stadium, and it works the other way too. That's massive fuel for Germany to kind of push through, and they've got a point to prove as well. We're talking world champions not too long ago who were getting kind of scraped through in the group stages, which is not something I'm sure many German fans will be happy about. I think in terms of players to watch, I think, again, we saw him in the Premier League and we saw him kind of in the Champions League. I think Kai Havertz will be certainly one to keep a lid on. I think it bodes well for us that he does play in the Prem, and majority of our players do too. It won't be someone completely new to us, but I do think if he's on his game and if he's playing well, linking things up, he'll certainly be the danger man for them.
He's played such a fluid role as well for Germany in this competition so far. You never really know where he's going to be, whether he's this 9, a false 9, right, wide forward, left. That Germany team in the way that it's a bit like City in the sense of it's so unpredictable. So yeah, I'm definitely with you there on Kai Havertz. And what about yourself, Sean? What are you thinking about this game tomorrow?
I'm going 7-0 Germany. I'll say, to be honest, like you said, it's going to be a tight game. It's probably going to be a cagey affair. I think it will probably be 1 each. I think that if it goes to extra time, if it goes to penalties, I don't know. Traditionally, I'd fancy Germany on penalty kicks, but now that England have got that kind of monkey off the back, so to say, with winning the penalty shootout of the World Cup, it could go either way. So I'm going to say 1 each. I'll go Germany. I'll go contrasting view. Sorry to rain the parade. But nah, like I say, I think it's so. It should be a good game. I just from a kind of somebody who's watching it without a kind of horse in the race. I just hope it's not one of these really boring games that when you get like 2 big teams that just sit out and it just ends up being an absolute snooze fest. I hope it's a good game, and I hope it's an interesting one. And in terms of a German player, maybe not like a star player, but I've been really impressed with Robin Gosens, the kind of left wing back that's been playing for them. Really dynamic, gets forward, does well defensively as well, and he's been a really good player over the past few seasons at Atalanta in the Champions League as well. So yeah, he's one to watch out for. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on it.
Thank you very much. Well, guys, it's been a pleasure speaking to you all. England this time tomorrow, we'll be setting up, we'll be having the teams will be out, and we will win the game, and we'll make it through to the quarters and then the semis and then win, and then it's coming home. So thanks again, guys, and it's been a real pleasure speaking to you, like I said. And yeah, I mean, this was my last episode, but there will be a fourth one next week. And thanks again.